everyone, welcome back to Aussie Starcraft as we're bringing you some more of the awesome games that took place at DreamHack Bucharest. This time in top of the left hand corner of Merrygoround, it's going to be Innovation. The bottom center location is our blue term player. It's going to be LiquidBunny. So it's going to be a TvT here on Merrygoround. I'm a bit excited to see how this plays out. This map has certainly been pegged as a map that is a great Terran map for a number of reasons. Life very difficult for players to take a third base on this map, so both Zerg and Protoss suffering just a little bit against Terran in the current environment. Very curious to see how these two Terran monstrosities take to the field against each other, just what sort of strategies they implement. Obviously, Merry-Go-Round going to be fairly good for drops and things like siege tank play. The interesting angles, all of the high ground, low ground locations near the various expansions make for a lot of different options for Terran. One of the interesting things about Merry-Go-Round that we haven't seen on other Blizzard maps, or haven't seen for some time, is this interesting barrier that forms the edge of the map. As you can see, actually prevents flying units from getting too far out of play. Units will actually fly along the edge of the barrier. They do look a bit funny sometimes as they do it, and they're restricted in the way in which they can move around the map. So perhaps not as terminal for drops as it could be, but certainly still very dangerous for both players nonetheless. Have both players mimicking each other almost perfectly here, going for what looks like Reaper openings. Obviously they want to know what their opponent's up to. Very dangerous, of course, in any mirror matchup or any matchup in general to not scout, unless you're Bomber, of course. Bomber loves the old no scout, I'm going to do the same thing regardless. And yeah, well, his 10,000 Marines are pretty terrifying if you saw the Home Story Cup at all. For those of you who have missed out on the action, there should be some reruns of it playing later today. But the Home Story Cup was fantastic, and we did see some great games out of Bomber and a number of other players. So hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. I spent the better part of the weekend watching Home Story Cup, and there were some great games. Don't want to spoil it for you, but certainly fairly happy with the result. And I imagine a number of other fans out there were as well. LiquidBunny actually going to be creating a supply depot out here. Can only think that the purpose of this depot just to spot any drops nice and early. Don't want them getting the whole drop landed and set up before you realise that they're there. The home base platform in this map is exceptionally big, as you can see. Very hard to cover all of that surface area if you're not careful. Very easy for your opponent to sneak in just a little drop here on one of the edges and then start to harass and threaten your mineral line, particularly if they sneak a tank or two into the medevac. Not as common to see that large doom drop nowadays, particularly at this level of play, but certainly not unheard of. Looks like Innovation going for a 1-1-1 style opening, Bunny likewise still mirroring it to T. You can even see the marine time is almost exactly identical as well. So this tech lab on the factory going to be the one difference. Look, I would imagine that this is going to be for a Banshee. Going to swap out the starport and factory, and that will allow Bunny to grab a Banshee quite quickly. Now looking like Innovation's going to be doing a very similar style, so it could be Banshee versus Banshee opening here. Interesting to see how both players counter. Of course, this tech lab could be used to get a Raven. Occasionally you'll see Terran players just sneak out one quick Raven to allow them to get defense against those sorts of drops, and also defense against, an increased capacity to win the air battle. And we can see Bunny actually going for that style. Going to be a quick Raven out of Bunny. That'll allow him to see this Banshee that we have on the way. Innovation's investing a lot here. It's got the cloak coming down and a Banshee, so same 200 gas that Bunny has. The difference for Bunny is his Raven will be useful for a much longer duration. Not that the Viking will become useless, but depending on use, it will likely do far less damage than you'd otherwise expect. Bunny taking up position here on the ramp, wanting to expand very soon. Innovation, on the other hand, seems to want to be going very aggressive here. We don't see any base on the way for him. Actually going to swap out a barracks onto that reactor and start churning out these Marines. And we have Innovation scouting out for the first time here. The Raven's making its way across the field. And this is actually scouted by this SCV. So the Banshee unfortunately giving itself away here. The Raven already in position. There's going to be a very disappointing moment for Innovation here as he decides to move in. Hasn't cloaked yet, but once he sees this Raven, unfortunately it is going to spoil the party, and that Banshee will have to go home. have a Viking now on the way for Bunny. That will virtually ensure that this Banshee can do very little unless the Viking does get wildly out of position. So you have the Viking and the Raven going to be moving out to edge, ensuring that no Banshee action can take place. The Banshee has headed home. Is going to be going for a bit of a scout through the middle of the map, checking things like the watchtowers, and Innovation deciding to expand behind this. So Command Center coming up now. Siege tanks on the way for both players. I love in a TvT matchup the fact that both players are forced to produce a bit of mech. They can go for the pure bio, but at the end of the day, the player with the most siege tanks, or the siege tanks in a better position, does tend to do very well. I really like LiquidBunny's playstyle here. Oh, Banshee's trying to have a crack there. Picks off one Marine. Second Marine spared a gruesome death by the Ravens and Vikings. I love, as I was saying, I love the style from Bunny here. The fact this Raven does do a lot for the Terran play ensures that Bunny should win the air fight unless he's tremendously outnumbered, and the player that wins the air fight gets the longer range for their siege tank, able to grab that increased line of sight and shoot beyond what would regularly be the siege tank's line of fire. So it looks like Bunny actually going to move out here. Really wants to pin down Innovation, prevent him from being able to expand. We see Innovation's got an expansion of his own. Missile turrets now down in the main and natural means that Bunny can actually move out. Very important for him to throw those down, otherwise that Banshee would come in, start raising hell. As you can see, as soon as Innovation spotted the force moving out, going to come in here for a look, but not going to be able to do a lot except for harass this command center. Unfortunately, Bunny focused elsewhere, and we can see that the Banshee is actually starting to get a few kills here, so up to 4 kills, not bad at all. Bunny going to be forced to commit here. Unfortunately, no Marines sitting idle for Bunny. Those Marines would have been able to do quite a bit of damage. We have Bunny here driving back this second Banshee. Innovation trying to set up a defensive line. It's Bunny actually going to take up position on the low ground here. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount that he can do. He can pick off this tank here potentially, wanting to hold position just so he can get that final shot on the siege tank. So now that a tank will go down, weakening Innovation's defense. Innovation forced to pull back here and throw down a scan. As you can see, the fact that Innovation doesn't have any air superiority means that Bunny is very much winning this fight. These Marines here trying to get in a better position. Siege tanks on low ground in a very dangerous spot. This tank here actually able to get a nice shot off on Bunny's Marines. Seeker missile coming down the tank here. This Seeker missile is going to destroy that tank, but the remainder of these Marines will get cleaned up. We even have Vikings landing an attempt to kill these Marines. Siege tanks from the low ground continuing to fire. We have a Banshee and auto turret going to town there on the tanks on the low ground. It looks like Innovation able to hold there quite nicely. If we check out the losses tab, Bunny having lost quite a good deal more. So in spite of his original positioning, which was quite good, Bunny was Innovation was able to pick him apart and defend that quite nicely. So Bunny able to get his base established. We can see Innovation didn't stop SCV production at all. We can see a 47 harvester count, 220. Obviously Bunny taking quite a few workers, 28 workers killed by that Banshee during that play. So we can see Innovation hard at work there, and Bunny's certainly going to struggle in the mid game now that he's taken that amount of economic damage. So got to be ultra careful. Defender does generally have an advantage, not just because of prior positioning, but also because of the speed at which reinforcements can make their way into the combat. So Innovation able to take it decisively in this game. Actually going to be producing his third command center. It's going to be well and truly ahead of that of Bunny's third base. Bunny instead continuing to produce some barracks. Wants to be able to put on a lot of pressure now. Knows that he is significantly behind economically. Wants to break Innovation. Otherwise he's just really going to struggle. Obviously being led 3 CCs to 2 isn't a position he wants to be in. He has 2 choices. He can get greedy and throw down another base or 2, or he has to really double down, produce a few units, and then strike whilst Innovation is busy trying to expand. We have Stimpack almost finished up now for Innovation. Bunny's I think is a long way away. We don't actually have Stim, I don't believe. No, indeed it hasn't gone down. No tech labs on the barracks as of yet, and that Banshee continuing to do damage. Even though it didn't get a lot of kills, it did damage in the fact that that Bunny is now throwing out scans to try and kill it. Every one of those scans is 250 minerals, and when you're as ahead as Innovation is, you really don't want to be wasting that energy that could be spent on mules. As we can see, Innovation's Banshee pinned up here against that wall that we were talking about earlier. Bunny with a few tanks here ready to receive Innovation. Unfortunately for him, Innovation's Medevac's already on the field, so Bunny pretty much down in every way that could be expected in this TvT game. Really goes to show how important that offense is. If you're going to be the aggressor, you better have your stuff in the right position. Bunny did so well, took out the air of Innovation. Unfortunately, his elevator play into the main base didn't quite play out the way he was hoping. We have Innovation here actually going for a repeat performance of what Bunny attempted to do to him. The Viking here going to be working his way through those medevacs. Marines in good position for Bunny here, gonna be able to shut down a good deal of this. This auto turret going to go down as well from the siege tank in the main, so nice play from Bunny. That siege tank actually managing to get 7 kills there, not shabby at all. And if we check out the unit count, we can see it is actually 6 tanks to 5. Bunny has managed to hold on there, but as we can see, an ever increasing supply gap here, 141 supply to 97. Certainly not a position that Innovation well, exactly the position Innovation wants to be in, but not the sort of position Bunny would like to see himself in. As we can see, he is going to want to move out here, even pulling his siege tank from the main. This is one of the few options that he does have. Wants to get into a great position and set up and try and put a bit of pressure on Innovation. If he can break this army, there's hope for him. If he fails to win this engagement, and Innovation's just going to stim forward, but there's going to be a good deal of damage. That front tank almost going down, but instead Bunny's frontmost tank getting picked off from those 4 siege tanks at the back. So we have these two forces stalemating themselves in the middle of the map, which is very dangerous. And we see Innovation supply much higher than Bunny's here, and he's in a position where, should he desire to do so, he can just pick up these Marines and the medevacs and go straight for a drop in the main. Bunny actually, nice drops on top of these tanks, actually manages to pick off 2 of the tanks, and that's exactly what he needs to do to get back into this game. Still 40 supply down. There's Viking being an absolute pest, forcing those medevacs back. These tanks trying to get into a great position. Unfortunately, every minute that he wastes, Innovation just continues to macro up behind this. And we have a Mexican standoff here in the middle of the map. Both players wanting to shift their position, but a little bit wary as to what will happen if they're caught out of position. A massive group of reinforcements, Marines and tanks, making their way across the map for Innovation. We see Seeker missiles coming down on the tank. Bunny, oh, nice pick up there on the tank to actually prevent that tank from taking any damage. Splash damage on the other tanks did a fair bit, but unfortunately it's going to be too little too late for Bunny. Nice pick up, but at the end of the day, the overwhelming supply advantage for Bunny is going to seal out this game in favour of Innovation. So, bit of a shame for Bunny. We saw such a strong opening for him. Unfortunately, Innovation just playing fantastically here at DreamHack Bucharest. And these Marines going to stim forward, take a lot of damage from the tank on the high ground, but 5 tanks behind it. And I think we'll see Bunny tap out any moment now. These Marines are able to sit here in relative safety as these siege tanks, even the Banshee coming in for a bit more harass. Marines is able to work down these Marines, and Bunny taps out. GG, well played from both players. The reason I wanted to cast that game, guys, is Bunny had a great opening. For those Terran players out there, Bunny had a great opening, got air superiority, and was doing everything right until he went for that imbalanced drop into the main base. It was able to get cleaned up by Innovation, and unfortunately Bunny then suffered on the counter-attack. But everything Bunny did up until that point was fantastic. Easily got air superiority, did a great job of defending against Innovation's Banshee play, and was just setting himself up very well. Unfortunately, Innovation, master of defense, managed to hold off against that push and swing the game out in his favour. But we saw him boldly produce SCVs all the way through the combat, combined with the Banshee doing damage, managed to roll the game up into a neat little bundle, which he took home for Christmas. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Aussie StarCraft, and I'll catch you in the next cast.